Let's imagine this moment. You're waiting inside the car and the ferry is about to come. You're going to Africa. On the left side, you can see the Gibraltar rock, and in front of you is 65 kilometers of water and Morocco. Passport ready, documents ready, and you're ready to go. I'm Juan Martinez and I travel over 160 countries in the most ridiculous ways possible. This year, I decided to buy a Land Rover Defender from 1997 and drive it all the way from Europe down to South Africa. First stop, Morocco. In this video, I'm going to explain you everything you need to know before you travel to this country and all the tips that I can give you from my own experience. Visas, insurances, documentation, and just basic knowledge that you need to know when you're driving in Morocco. So let's just jump into it. And what a better way to start than with the water. Let's go with the ferry. Ferry crossings, routes, pricings, and timing. That's something very essential to know. The easiest way to get to Morocco is from the cities of Algeciras or Tarifa. These are two cities in the south of Spain where you can take the ferry to Morocco, and it will take only 1 hour, 1.5 hours depending on the conditions. Other options are from Italy and from France. These options will take way more time, and depending on the driving that you want to take, might be worth it, maybe not. Let's focus on the Spanish crossings. And the first one will be Algeciras. When you're going to Algeciras, you have two options. You can go directly to Tangier Med, which is already in Morocco, or you can go to the city of Ceuta, which is an enclave from Spain, and you're basically still driving inside the European Union where you need to cross overland to Morocco. Advantages and disadvantages of these two options is that if you're going directly to Tangier Med, you are going to be entering into a new country, so you don't need to do any more paperwork once you are there. If you're going to Ceuta, first, there's not much documentation required, but then you need to get to Morocco, which can be a little bit long in the lines according to what I heard. Prices are more or less the same, which is around 180 euros, 160 to 200 euros, I would say, and you can get the tickets right away at the ferry station. You can also book them beforehand, but in my opinion, I just went there and I just booked the next possible ferry to Tangier Med. That was the option that I took, and I found it that very convenient. I didn't need to book anything beforehand, and I was able to plan more flexible. If you're going to the port of Tarifa, you're not going to Tangier Med, you're going to Tangier in the city center. What's the advantage and disadvantage of that? If you're going to Tangier in the city center, you're driving jump into the chaos. Morocco can be quite chaotic when it comes to streets, and if you're not very used to this kind of driving, I wouldn't recommend you to drive straight to Tangier. Tangier Med on the other side is a little bit outside the city, I will say like 20 kilometers outside Tangier, and that was the best option if you just want a peaceful transition into the Moroccan roads. How does it work with the ferry crossing? The ferry terminal in Spain is quite big. So once you enter, you're basically inside some kind of compound. There you can park for free, get your tickets, and then you go through customs. When you're going to customs, you only need to show your ticket, nothing else. They're not going to check anything about the car, anything about passports. Once you get into the ferry terminal after the ticket control, you have passport control. Passport control is going to be very quickly as well. They're not going to verify the vehicle. They're not going to check any paperwork. They only want to see your passport. You get stamped out and then you get to the ferry line. The ferry line, you have to wait until the ferry arrives. The ferry arrival can take, 10 to 20 minutes. Boarding can take also between 20 minutes to half an hour. It's quite quickly. Once you get inside the ferry boat, you need to exit your vehicle and you need to go to the waiting area. This is also very important because this is also where you're going to stamp your passport. No car documentation will be checked there, only your passport. Keep that in mind. The ferry drive will take around 45 minutes. You can get a coffee, you can get some food, you can even talk to the other people who are around. It's quite a nice atmosphere. And yeah, before we get into what happens when you get to Morocco, let's just jump into what kind of documentation you need to have first. And the documentation is also quite straightforward. First of all, you need your passport. Without this, you cannot travel. You cannot travel with your national ID. This was a regulation that expired not long ago, and now a passport is obligatory if you want to enter into Morocco. What else do you need? You need your car registration papers. This document simply will show that you own the vehicle, and in case you don't own the vehicle, you need a written authorization. The best option will be also be notarized that you are allowed to drive this vehicle. This was my car, so it was not my case, but that's what I found on research. Insurance or not insurance? That's a big question, and a lot of people are not sure where you need what. According to some sources that I found, you do need an insurance once you arrive in Morocco. That's not true. Don't worry about it. This is not going to get checked, this is not going to be enforced, and it's not necessary. You will get your insurance once you arrive in Morocco. Keep also in mind, your European insurance expires once your car gets on the boat. That insurance is not valid once you are in Morocco. It's an insurance for the European Union, not for Morocco. What about other documents like Carnet de Passage or the technical mechanical exam? You don't need any of those things. These things are not necessary. However, since you don't need a Carnet de Passage, your passport will be attached to your vehicle. Keep that also in mind. And also, what about the driving license? Do you need an international driving license? That's a very good question. If your driving license is written in any Latin character, we're talking about German driving license, French, Spanish, English, the US, that shouldn't be a problem. You can travel with your normal driving license. However, if your license is in a different alphabet, you do need to get an international driving permit. I don't know if with a nationality like Colombia, if you have a Colombian driving license, if you might need an international driving permit. But if I was you, I will do that. I think that's something that doesn't cost much time, doesn't cost much energy, and just give you a safety, just in case. You never know when you're going to get checked. The official rule says Latin characters, but you never know. Now, let's go back to the ferry. As I mentioned before, you're going to get stamped inside the ferry. That's where customs is happening for your passport. Then, once you get there, you go back down to your car, you exit with your vehicle, and you're going to get redirected. The road is quite straight. You're not going to get lost or don't know what to do. First, someone is going to check your passport, that your passport is really stamped, and then they're going to redirect you to a place where you're going to get a temporary entry permit for your car. This paper looks a little bit like this, and you need to keep it. This is very important. This is basically the passport for your car, so don't lose it. It's going to be valid for 6 months from the moment you enter, and you need to also keep in mind, and it cannot be extended. Now, after getting this document, which by the way is completely free, they're going to redirect you to a place where you can buy an insurance. You're not going to get control if you have an insurance before. You're going to buy an insurance in Morocco. So you're going to a place called CAT. This is the office where you get an insurance, and you can select the time frame you want to get it. You can get it for 1 month, 2 months, or 6 months. For 1 month, I paid 90 euros. It was a very straightforward process, only payments in cash, but don't worry, there was an ATM right next to the spot. And that was also the place where I got a SIM card. I was offered a SIM card, 48 GB for 25 euros or unlimited data for 50 euros. I found a pretty good deal, way better than any eSIM that I found in the market. So I will go for that option. All of this is happening inside the ferry terminal. Right after that, you're going to check through customs. They might just check the paperwork. They're not going to do anything else unless they find some suspicion. You might have to get out of the car and you need to open all your bags. Drones are not allowed, and they're going to ask you straight in the eye, do you bring a drone? So don't bring your drone, keep it at home. You can get into big trouble with that. In my case, they didn't check anything. They just asked if I had weapons. I said right away no. The guy said like, hey, can you open your car? I opened the car and he didn't even look. He just said like, yeah, just continue, don't worry about it. Most European cars are not going to get checked. This is more for Moroccan vehicles, full with luggages, full with boxes, with packages. They just want to know a little bit more what's happening there. Before you exit the terminal, they're also going to check your documents again, that you have an insurance, that this document was issued, and they're just going to check your passport. Very easy process. I will say the whole immigration customs process inside Morocco, inside the ferry terminal, took around 25 minutes maximum. It's super easy. Driving in Morocco. Driving in Morocco is a tricky question because I feel that most people are intimidated by the idea of driving in this part of the world. They see these chaotic images and videos of driving in Morocco and they feel that every moment is gonna be like that. Not really. If you're already used to driving in Spain, in Greece, France, definitely Portugal, then Morocco won't be difficult for you. Outside the big cities, outside the Medina areas, is the driving, I will say, as equal as in Europe. Rules are not very well respected by the other drivers, but if you focus on yourself and on your driving and you keep the rules as you know them, you shouldn't have any trouble at all. I drove almost everywhere in Morocco and I didn't find any situation where I felt it was tricky, even though I was driving a UK vehicle where the wheel is at the other side and where I didn't have much knowledge about the vehicle itself. What about fuel, tolls, and payment methods? Let's just jump into it. Gas stations are almost everywhere in Morocco, so that was really not a big issue. In Morocco, unlike some parts of Europe, somebody's going to come to your car and they're going to fill your tank. That's also super useful. You also don't have to deal with any machine. Payments can be done also with a credit card, so you don't need to carry cash all the time. However, there are some stations that only accept cash. They will also warn you beforehand. Sorry, we're only taking cash. Is that good for you? Currently in Morocco, people speak relatively good English. I didn't encounter any big language barrier during this trip, so I don't find any reason why you will encounter that too. When it comes to tolls, if you're taking the highway, there are tolls for crossing the highway. The highways are as good as in Europe. You don't need to worry about it. Perfect roads in perfect condition. Maximum speed is 120 kilometers. And you get a ticket once you enter and you pay at the end when you're exiting the highway. The toll prices vary depending how long you drive and which road you take. I will say from Tangier to Casablanca, which is around 300 kilometers, for a normal vehicle, the toll will be around 100 dirhams, which is around 10 euros. For navigation, I use Google Maps. I downloaded the offline version of Google Maps before, but I heard some people talking about Waze. So if you can have both options, that will be fine. Let's talk about the parking spots, the app Park for Night, and what about the Guardians? Who are these people? There are two ways for me to find a parking spot. The first one was using Google Maps. You just put the next parking spot. Sometimes it was a little bit unreliable, but still fine. The option that I preferred the most was to use the app Park for Night. I will put also in the comments. You can also see the parking spots with reviews, and it will tell you some tips. Sometimes you can also spend the night in these parking spots and they will tell you what's the advantage and what's the disadvantage of this parking spot. Especially when you're traveling with a big vehicle, they will tell you big vehicles won't fit in this parking spot or they won't let you spend the night here. For free parking spots, you will always see a man that is taking care of your vehicle. How much do you need to tip him? Because he's not working for a salary, there's not an official parking price, you need to tip him or you need to tip this person. It depends how long you're gonna stay. If you're staying for a couple hours, I think you can pay him 5 dirham, which is around 50 cents, 10 dirham, 1 euro, that should be fine. If you're spending the night, this person is gonna take care of your car, you will pay around 2 to 3 euros, which is around 30 to 50 dirham, and they're super friendly. One situation that happened is that I prepared my breakfast inside the car, and when I was doing my breakfast, I decided to give this guy some apples, and he was extremely friendly to me. He also gave me some fruit that he had in his pocket, so it was a little bit like a little friendship that we built there, and he was able to take care of my car. Camping sites and camping rules. There's a lot of camping spots in Morocco. I was very surprised to see that Morocco is a very big overland destination. I was not expecting that, and camping spots are almost everywhere. Park for Night was the best option to find the best camping spots available, especially when you're reading the reviews. And also, if you're going to a big city, let's say Rabat, Casablanca, or Marrakech, usually the camping spots are not inside the city, they're outside the cities. Which gave me the option to spend the night better inside the city in a parking spot. So you have the option if you want the proper camping spot or if you want a parking spot. Prices for camping spots also change. Sometimes you're going to get charged for electricity, sometimes you're going to get charged for internet, and sometimes you're going to get charged for the showers, for hot showers, I would say. The prices are usually between 60 to 70 dirham, 6 to 7 euros, and any one of these extra services will be around 10 dirham or 1 euro. What about police checks, speed limits, and the flashing lights that you might see from other cars? Sooner or later, you're going to cross a police officer. They're almost everywhere around the roads, and their job is to make sure that everything goes well. Most of them are going to do just a basic control. They're going to see you, and if you have a foreign car, if you didn't do anything wrong, they will just let you go through. They're not going to check your passport. They're not there to pick up bribes. On the other hand, there are other spots where they have speed traps. Basically, there's a change of speed that happens very quickly and you're going downhill and they have the speed pistols down there, very ready to catch you. It happened to me a few times. I got a few fines like that. So just be careful with that. Moroccans help each other. So if you're driving on the highway and you see that someone is flashing you the lights, it means there's a police control in front of you. So just keep that in mind. It's a small tip that I heard a little bit too late, I have to confess, but it still worked at the end. If you get a fine for speeding, you have to pay it right away there. They're going to take your passport and your vehicle ownership and they're going to be very straight to you. They're not looking for bribes. They're going to tell, hey, you went over speed. You have a fine of 150 dirham, around 15 euros, and you need to pay it on the spot. So bring some cash. That will just make your life easier. It will take everything 5 to 10 minutes. It's quite straightforward, a little bit annoying, but yeah, it's not a problem that I encounter, or I would say it's a big trouble. I know you will get very frustrated because everybody just wants to drive the way they want to drive, and then you get caught in a speed trap like that for driving 5 kilometers more than the limited speed. It happens, you need to learn like that. This is how driving in Morocco is. Driving inside cities, as I mentioned before, I didn't find much struggle to drive inside cities. Usually outside the Medina area, the city roads are in very well conditioned. Same as driving in Spain, same as driving in France. I didn't encounter any trouble with that. Parking was also quite easy. Once you decide to enter into the Medina, just check the map before. Be careful that you don't get stuck. Sometimes it can happen that the roads are very small, and if you're traveling with a big vehicle, it can be a pain in the ass. If you have a large vehicle, my recommendation is stay out of the Medina unless you know the road. For the rest, be very simple driving. Sometimes a little bit chaotic, sometimes the traffic jams are quite annoying. That's a situation that will happen to you, but nothing to be concerned, nothing to be too stressed about. Just take it easy, leave it in the moment. When it comes to long distance roads, you might have to take the highway or you can take a basic road. These basic roads are usually mountain passes or desert roads. They're usually very pretty, very photogenic. They might be a little bit complicated to drive, but again, if you drive in the Alps, if you drive in Spain, you won't have any trouble. These are very panoramic roads. I totally recommend it. I thought driving on the highway was very boring. It's just like in Europe, you don't see anything. The highways look like in Europe. So I try to avoid them unless I really wanted to get from A to B very, very quickly. Also keep in mind, if you're taking one of those serpentine roads, crossing one of the mountain passes, and try to not keep the tank lower than half of it, because sometimes the gas stations are between 60 to 100 kilometers away from each other, and you don't know if they're gonna have gas, you don't know if they're going to accept the payment methods that you have. So just to make sure, always carry your tank of gasoline more than half. What about car rentals? You don't want to bring your own vehicle, but you want to rent a car. Super easy, very convenient. If you're only there for 1 week, you can rent your car almost in every airport. As I mentioned before, the driving is not an issue. You can get a car rental, a small vehicle, for around 30 to 50 euros if you book it beforehand. Just keep track of the small letters. Sometimes there are some conditions there you might not be aware of, especially when it comes to insurances, but all big companies are there. Is it worth it to rent a 4x4 car? Depends what you want. You can do a lot of tours for a very affordable price where they're going to take you to the 4x4 regions. You're going to the desert, you're going to the dunes, and you might save that money. So I don't find it necessary unless you really want to do independent of the road driving. But if it's a rental vehicle, I'm not sure how comfortable you will feel with this situation. So yeah, it's up to you, your decision. I don't think a 4x4 is necessary to drive in Morocco. And it just makes the cost way, way higher. And is it driving in Morocco worth it? Absolutely yes. That was one of the biggest surprises I had in this trip, the diversity of landscapes. Mountain passes, coastal roads, desert roads. everything in one single country. That was super fun. I really enjoyed. I didn't find any situation where I thought it was complicated or where I thought I would be in trouble or I felt uncomfortable with my driving or with myself or with the situation around me. I even drove at night. I drove in the morning. I drove off-road and I didn't have any trouble at all. So I can totally recommend it. It will be an adventure of a lifetime. Way different than in Europe, but at the same time, it feels familiar, it feels very similar, you will feel comfortable, and you will have a time of your life. So now, if this guide helped you, just click on the like button, just subscribe. I will be posting also more videos about the next crossings, Mauritania, Senegal, about other specific paperwork that you might need, a carnet de passage, how you can get one, how much it costs, and so on. So yeah, just like and subscribe, and I hope to see you in the next video.